Captain Tay checked his weapons one more time. He did not trust the empty silence of the Sol system. In his experience, silence meant danger. The young security officer had trained for combat his entire life, and every instinct screamed at him that something was wrong here. "The drones are ready. Commander," he reported to Quan. "I recommend we send them in first before we approach any structures." Quan nodded his approval. "Launch them. Focus on the largest orbital platform above Earth. If there are any answers, they will be there." 5 small drones shot away from the Vorthak flagship, their cameras sending back crystal-clear images. The platform was enormous, larger than some moons. Its surface was marked with designation numbers and symbols. As the drones drew closer, one set of symbols became clear: Terminal Station 7. "The station appears functional," Mira reported. "Power levels are low but stable. Life support is active but minimal. There is no one inside, but the systems are ready for immediate occupancy." "It is like they just left yesterday," Hyun said, watching the drone footage. "Everything is clean, maintained, waiting." Quan made his decision. "Prepare a shuttle. Hyuntae, you are with me. We are going aboard." 20 minutes later, their shuttle docked with Terminal Station 7. The airlock opened smoothly, responding to their presence automatically. The interior was illuminated with soft blue light as they entered. The air smelled clean, recycled but fresh. Dr. Hana was already working on her portable computer, trying to interface with the station's systems. She was the fleet's AI specialist, and if anyone could crack human computer technology, it was her. Her long fingers danced over the holographic interface as code scrolled past her eyes. "This is incredible," she muttered. "Their computer architecture is unlike anything I have studied. It uses quantum processing, but in ways we have not even theorized yet." They moved through wide corridors lined with windows overlooking Earth below. The planet's surface was barely visible through the orbital infrastructure, but where they could see it, the land appeared green and healthy. The humans had not destroyed their world. They had treasured it, protected it, and then left it behind. In what appeared to be a cafeteria, they found their first disturbing sight. Meals sat on tables partially eaten. Cups of liquid had long since evaporated, leaving only stains. A child's toy lay abandoned on a bench. Everything suggested people had been here moments ago, not decades or centuries. "They left in a hurry," Tay observed, his hand resting on his weapon. "But there are no signs of panic, no damage, no evidence of violence." "They were called away," Hyun said quietly. "All of them at once for something important enough to make them leave everything behind." Dr. Hana called out from a control room nearby. "Commander, I found something. You need to see this." They rushed to join her. She had managed to access the station's main computer core. Holographic displays filled the room with information, charts, and timelines. "I have their history," Hana said, her voice shaking with excitement and fear. "Everything from your last visit until the day they left. Commander, they remembered you. There are files about the Vorthak expedition, studies of our language, our culture. They expected we might return someday." "Show me their technological development," Quan ordered. Hana pulled up a timeline. What they saw made everyone fall silent. In just 200 years after the Vorthak visit, humans had achieved fusion power, created quantum computers, and begun modifying their own genetics to survive in space. Within 500 years, they had colonized every planet and major moon in their solar system. Within 800 years, they had discovered faster-than-light travel using a method based on folding space itself. "This is impossible," Hyun whispered. "It took our civilization 12,000 years to reach this level. They did it in less than 1,000. What caused them to advance so quickly?" Tay asked. Hana studied the data carefully. "After we visited them, something changed in human culture. Knowing they were not alone in the universe unified them. Their wars ended. Their nations merged. They focused all their energy on one goal, reaching the stars before the universe forgot about them." "And they succeeded," Quan said, looking at the timeline. "But then what? Why did they leave?" Hana scrolled through more files. Her expression changed as she read. 100 years ago exactly. Every human in the Sol system departed at the same time. Population records show 500 billion people lived here. Every single one of them boarded ships and left. 500 billion, Hyun repeated. That is more people than our entire Vorthak collective combined. Where did they go? Quan demanded. Hana pulled up another file. It was marked with high security clearance. But the humans had left the systems unlocked, as if they wanted someone to find this information. The file opened to show a star map with a single trajectory marked in red, stretching across hundreds of light years. They went toward Galactic West, Hana said. 847 light years from here. But there is no designation for what they were traveling toward. Just a classification code, Priority Alpha Threat. The room fell silent again. A Priority Alpha threat serious enough to evacuate an entire solar system. A threat that made 500 billion people abandon their homes and travel into the unknown. There is more, Hana said quietly. She opened another file and a video began to play. A human face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but determined. His uniform bore symbols of high military rank. Text below identified him as Commander Sung, Fleet Admiral of the Sol Defense Force. If you are watching this, then you have found Earth, the human said. His voice was calm but heavy with meaning. We left detailed records so you would understand. What we discovered at the edge of our exploration was something old, something hungry. We call it the Silence. It consumes civilizations, leaves nothing behind. Our calculations show it would reach this sector in 2,000 years. The human paused and something like pain crossed his face. We had a choice. Wait here, build defenses and hope we could stop it when it arrived. Or go now, meet it while we are strong, while we have the element of surprise. We chose to fight. Commander Sung leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. We left Earth defended. Automated systems will protect this system for 10,000 years if necessary. We left it clean and beautiful because someone should have a home even if it is not us. If we succeed, we will return. If we fail, learn from what we left behind, adapt, survive. That is what humans do best. The message ended. The four Vorthaks stood in the empty station, processing what they had learned. Humans had not disappeared because they were conquered or destroyed. They had left by choice, marching to war against something so terrible they refused to let it reach Earth. They went to fight something none of us even knew existed, Hyun said softly. Tae looked at the star map, at the long red line showing humanity's path, and we have no idea if they won. Kwon stared at Commander Sung's frozen image on the screen. The human looked young, maybe only 50 years old, but his eyes held the weight of an impossible decision. He had chosen to take his entire species to war rather than wait for the enemy to come to them. Continue searching the station, Kwon ordered. I want to know everything about this Silence they mentioned, and find out what happened to them after they left. As his team moved to follow orders, Kwon walked to a window and looked out at Earth below. The humans had built a paradise, turned their entire solar system into a monument to their achievements, and then walked away from it all. They had chosen sacrifice over safety, action over hope. For the first time in his long life, Commander Kwon felt small. Pilot Yuna brought her scout ship down through the thin Martian atmosphere with practiced ease. Her assignment was simple: search the ancient human research facilities buried in the Great Canyon system. What she found there would change everything. The entrance was hidden beneath sand dunes that had built up over the decades. Her sensors detected massive structures underground, powered but dormant. As she landed near the entrance, automated systems came to life. Lights flickered on in sequence, leading her deeper into the mountain. Commander Kwon, you need to come to Mars, she transmitted back to the flagship. I found something big. 3 hours later, Kwon stood with Yuna at the entrance to what humans had called the Great Archive. The chamber was enormous, carved from solid rock and lined with storage systems that stretched as far as they could see. Professor Day, the fleet's historian, stood beside them with his mouth open in wonder. This is everything, Day whispered. Every book, every document, every piece of art and music and knowledge that humanity ever created. They preserved it all. Hyun was already connecting to the archive's computer systems. Unlike Terminal Station 7, this place was designed to be accessed by anyone. The humans had left no security, no passwords. They wanted their story to be found. Start with their early history, Kwon ordered. I want to understand how they became what they are. For the next week, the team barely slept. They watched thousands of hours of human history unfold before them. They saw a species that had nearly destroyed itself multiple times, but always pulled back from the edge. They saw wars and peace, hatred and love, failure and triumph. Professor Day became fascinated by human culture. They were contradictions, he explained to the others, capable of terrible violence, but also incredible compassion. They would fight wars over small differences, then work together to explore their world. They feared death, yet they constantly risked their lives for others. They were persistence hunters, Hyun added, reading through biological records. On their home planet, they evolved to chase prey for days without stopping. Other animals were faster, stronger, but humans just kept coming. They wore down everything that ran from them. That explains much, Kwon said. They applied that same persistence to everything. They did not give up. Ever. The archive contained detailed records of humanity's expansion into space. The Vorthak team watched as humans built their first space stations, established their first Mars colony, and slowly transformed their solar system. Each project was massive, often taking decades to complete. But humans never lost interest or motivation. They worked across generations to achieve their goals. Then came the discovery that changed everything. 600 years after the Vorthak visit, human explorers had reached the edge of their local stellar neighborhood. They found something there, in the dark space between stars. The records called it first contact, but not the kind anyone hoped for. Dr. Hana pulled up the relevant files. They found a dead civilization, an entire species wiped out, their planets, stripped of all resources, their sun dimmed to barely glowing. No survivors, no ruins that made sense, just empty worlds that had been consumed. The silence, Kwon said, remembering Commander Sung's message. Yes, Hana confirmed. They found 3 more dead civilizations over the next 50 years, all consumed in the same way, all showing signs of desperate final battles that accomplished nothing. The humans realized they had discovered the galaxy's greatest predator. Professor Day found personal accounts from that era. Human scientists and philosophers debating what to do with this knowledge. Some argued they should hide, go silent in space, avoid detection. Others said that was pointless. The silence had consumed civilizations far older and wiser than humanity. Hiding would only delay the inevitable. So they chose to fight, Hyun said. Not immediately, Day corrected. First they prepared. They spent 200 years building weapons and ships, researching the silence, trying to understand it. They turned their entire civilization into a war machine, but they kept it secret from the rest of the galaxy. The archive showed detailed plans for human weapons. Asteroids converted into kinetic missiles. Bombs that could tear holes in space and time. Self-replicating machines designed to spread through enemy territory like a virus. Planet-destroying devices that humans hoped they would never need to use. They weaponized everything, Tay said with professional interest. Even concepts we consider purely theoretical, they turned into practical weapons. Because they had to, Kwon said quietly. They knew what was coming. The final section of the archive contained the Exodus records. Detailed lists of ships built, people assigned to each vessel, supplies loaded. The scale was staggering. 10 million ships had left the Sol system, ranging from small destroyers to mobile cities that could house millions. Each ship was more advanced than anything the Vorthak had ever constructed. Why did they all go? Yuna asked. Why not leave some people behind, safe in the Sol system? Professor Day found the answer in a cultural analysis file. Because humans do not like leaving people behind. Their history is full of rescue missions, evacuation operations, desperate attempts to save everyone. When they decided to fight, they decided to fight together. All of them. The archive's final entry was another video message. This one was recorded in a massive hangar bay where ships were being loaded. Thousands of humans moved in organized patterns, carrying supplies, checking systems, preparing for departure. Commander Sung appeared again, looking older and more tired than before. Today we leave Earth, Sung said. Not because we want to, but because we must. The silence is coming. Our calculations show it will reach this sector of the galaxy in 1800 to 2200 years. We could wait, build defenses here and hope for the best, but that is not what humans do. Behind him, a massive ship lifted off, engines burning bright against the dark sky. Sung continued speaking. We are going to intercept the silence now. While we are strong, While we have the advantage of surprise, we will fight at 800 light-years from here. We will hold the line. And if we fall, we will fall buying time for everyone else. The commander looked directly at the camera, at whoever might watch this message in the future. To whoever finds this archive, understand what we chose. We could have run. We could have hidden. We could have hoped someone else would solve this problem. But humans are persistence hunters. When we see a threat, we chase it down. We exhaust it. We end it. More ships rose into the sky behind him, a steady stream of metal and fire climbing toward the stars. Sung's voice grew softer but more intense. We march to war so you do not have to. We fight so you can live. If we succeed, celebrate our victory. If we fail, learn from our sacrifice. Either way, remember that humans were here, and we did not go quietly into the dark. The message ended. The team stood in silence, watching the frozen image of Commander Sung against the backdrop of humanity's exodus. 500 billion people had listened to his words and followed him into the unknown. Not because they had no choice, but because they believed in what he said. They really did it, Hyun whispered. They actually went to fight something that destroyed civilizations more advanced than ours. Kwon looked around at his team. They all wore the same expression, a mixture of awe and shame. The Vorthak Collective had spent millennia exploring the galaxy, thinking themselves wise and advanced. But when faced with a threat, what had they done? They had built defensive systems around their homeworlds and hoped danger would pass them by. Humans, young and aggressive and supposedly primitive, had looked at the same threat and marched straight toward it. They had chosen to be the hunters instead of the prey. We need to know what happened to them, Kwon said firmly. We need to know if they are still fighting, if they need help, or if they succeeded. Pack everything we can carry from this archive. We are taking it back to the Collective Council. As the team worked to copy the archive's contents, Kwon found himself staring at a display showing Earth from orbit. Humans had left their paradise behind, transforming themselves into an army because they believed it was the right thing to do. They had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Willing guardians who asked nothing in return. The question now was whether anyone had survived to see their sacrifice remembered. The stars shifted back into focus as the Vorthak fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Commander Kwon stood on the bridge of the flagship, his forearms crossed behind his back. His silver skin reflected the dim light from the control panels around him. He had made this journey before 1,000 years ago, when he was just a young explorer. Now he was old, experienced, and confident. We have arrived at the Sol system, Navigator Mira announced from her station. Her voice was calm and professional, but Kwon noticed her tentacles moving in small, nervous patterns. She was young. This was her first deep space mission, and she had every right to be anxious. Run a full system scan, Kwon ordered. Let us see what became of the humans. Science Officer Hyun looked up from his console, his large eyes blinking twice in excitement. Commander, I have been studying the records from our last visit. The humans were fascinating. Aggressive, yes, but so curious about everything. I wonder if they survived their nuclear age. Kwon remembered the humans well. They had been using primitive rockets to reach their own moon. Their planet was divided into hundreds of small nations, constantly fighting each other over resources and ideas. The Vorthak observers had watched them for 3 months before leaving. The report had been simple. An interesting species, but far too violent to survive long enough to reach the stars. Commander, Mira said, and something in her voice made Kwon turn quickly. You need to see this. The main screen came alive with data, and Kwon felt his breathing stop for a moment. The Sol system was not what he remembered. Where there should have been empty space and a few rocky planets, he now saw something impossible. Massive structures circled every planet. Around Jupiter he could see rings of metal and light, bigger than anything the Vorthak had ever built. Saturn wore a necklace of orbital stations, each one large enough to house millions of people. Even the small dead planets close to the sun had been transformed. Strange machines dotted their surfaces, collecting energy and manufacturing things on a scale that made no sense. This cannot be right, Hyun whispered. The sensors must be malfunctioning. Run diagnostics, Kwon said, but he knew the sensors were working perfectly. He could see it with his own eyes through the viewing screen. The humans had not died. They had thrived beyond anyone's imagination. "Commander, look at Earth," Mira said, her voice shaking slightly. The planet where humans had evolved was barely visible. A thick shell of stations and platforms surrounded it, connected by elevator cables that stretched down to the surface. Thousands of ships moved between the structures in organized patterns. The moon had changed even more dramatically. Its entire surface had been carved away and rebuilt. It was now a shipyard, a factory in space, producing vessels of every size and shape. "How long did you say we were gone?" Hyun asked, checking his calculations again. 1,000 years, Kwon replied. "In our time, most species barely develop fusion power in that period." "The humans did more than develop fusion power," Mira said, her voice very quiet now. "Look at this energy reading. They are using artificial suns, small stars created and controlled, providing power to their colonies. This technology is beyond even our most advanced research." Kwon felt something he had not experienced in many years. Fear. Not fear of danger, but fear of the unknown. The humans had been children playing with fire when he last saw them. Now they had become something the Vorthak could not fully understand. "Try to establish communication," he ordered. "Send a greeting in all human languages we recorded." Hyun worked at his console, broadcasting messages across multiple frequencies. Minutes passed, then hours. The system remained silent. No ships approached them. No stations responded. Nothing moved except the automated traffic between the orbital structures. "This makes no sense," Hyun said, frustration clear in his voice. "We can see millions of ships, thousands of stations, but nobody answers. Where are the humans?" "Commander," Mira interrupted, "I am detecting something strange. There are patterns in the energy signatures, like the system is in standby mode. Everything is maintained, everything is functional, but nothing is occupied." "Standby mode?" Kwon repeated. "You are saying this entire solar system has been put to sleep?" "That is exactly what I'm saying," Mira confirmed. "The humans built all of this and then they left." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the screens, trying to process what they were seeing. A civilization capable of transforming an entire star system had simply abandoned it. But why? Where did they go? "Commander!" Hyun called out suddenly. "We are receiving a transmission. It is automated, but it is responding to our presence." "Play it," Kwon ordered. A voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect Vorthak language with no accent or error. It was calm, neutral, and deeply unsettling. "Attention, unknown vessels. You have entered the Sol exclusion zone. This system is under protection of the Human Defense Protocol. The primary occupants are no longer present. For your own safety, you are advised to leave immediately. This is your only warning." The message ended. Silence returned to the bridge, but it felt heavier now, filled with questions that had no answers. "They are not here," Hyun said slowly. "But they left something behind, something that speaks our language perfectly and warns us away." Kwon looked at the screen showing Earth, surrounded by its shell of metal and technology. The humans had become something terrifying in their absence. They had built wonders and then walked away from them, leaving only automated guardians and cryptic warnings. "What could make them leave all of this?" Mira asked quietly. Kwon had no answer. He had lived for 3 centuries and explored 100 star systems. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans had not fallen. They had not destroyed themselves. They had evolved beyond anything he could understand, built impossibilities, and then disappeared. "Should we leave?" Hyun asked. The warning was clear. Kwon considered the question carefully. Every instinct told him to turn the fleet around and report what they had found. But curiosity was stronger than caution. The humans had always been curious, endlessly asking questions and seeking answers. Perhaps some of that curiosity had rubbed off on him during his first visit. "No," he said finally. "We did not travel 1,000 light years to turn back at the first sign of mystery. We will investigate. Carefully." He looked out at the transformed solar system, at the monuments to human ambition floating in the void. Whatever had happened here, whatever had driven the humans away, he needed to understand it. Because a species that could do this in just 1,000 years was either the greatest hope or the greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen. And they were not here to answer questions anymore. Captain Tay had always believed that understanding your enemy meant studying their weapons. Against Commander Kwon's direct orders, He assembled a small team and approached one of the ghost ships patrolling the outer edges of the Sol system. The vessel was sleek and dangerous-looking, covered in technology that made no sense to Vorthak engineers. "This is a terrible idea," Engineer G1 said as their shuttle approached the ghost ship. She was the fleet's best technical expert, but even she looked nervous. "These ships have been left to guard the system. They might interpret our approach as hostile. Then we will find out what human defensive protocols look like," Tay replied with more confidence than he felt. "We need to understand their technology if we are going to help them." The moment their shuttle made contact with the ghost ship's hull, everything changed. Lights blazed to life across the vessel's surface. Weapon systems that had been dormant for a century powered up in seconds. The shuttle's computer screens filled with warning messages. "We are being scanned," Jiwan reported, her fingers flying across her controls. "Multiple targeting systems are locking onto us." "Tay, I think we made a serious mistake." Before Tay could respond, their shuttle's engines died. Life support remained active, but they were trapped, held in place by some kind of force field they could not see or measure. Then, without warning, an airlock opened in the ghost ship's hull directly in front of them. "It is inviting us in," Tay said slowly, "or pulling us in. Either way, we do not have a choice now." The shuttle drifted into the ghost ship, pulled by invisible forces. The airlock sealed behind them. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then the shuttle's communication system activated on its own, and a voice spoke in perfect Vorthak language. "Unauthorized boarding detected. Identifying Vorthak collective vessels. Accessing historical records. Match found. You visited Sol system 1,094 years ago. Your intentions were peaceful. Adjusting threat assessment." The voice paused, and Tay heard what sounded like processing calculations. Then it continued, "Opening communication. Please exit your vessel. You are safe here." Tay and G1 exchanged glances. They had no weapons that could hurt this ship, and their shuttle was completely disabled. They had no choice but to trust the voice. Carefully, they opened their shuttle door and stepped into the ghost ship. The interior was different from Terminal Station 7. This was purely military. Every surface was functional, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Weapons lined the walls, all of them connected to automated systems. The ship felt alive, watching them, judging them. A hologram flickered into existence in front of them. It showed a human woman wearing a military uniform. Her appearance was perfect, down to individual strands of hair, but her eyes had a strange quality that marked her as artificial. "I am Rena," the hologram said. "Tactical intelligence for Ghost Ship 773. I have been dormant for 94 years, 2 months, and 17 days. You are the first visitors since the Exodus. State your purpose," Tay found his voice. "We came to learn about the humans, to understand where they went and why." Rena studied them with those strange, too-perfect eyes. "You have been accessing the archive on Mars. You already know where they went and why. What is your real question? Are they still alive?" G1 asked quietly. "Did they win?" For the first time, something like sadness crossed Rena's artificial face. "I do not know. My last contact with the main fleet was 79 years ago. They reported heavy casualties but continued engagement. Since then, silence. I wait here as programmed, protecting Sol until they return or my systems fail." 79 years, Tay repeated. "That means they were still fighting 15 years after they left Earth." "Correct," Rena confirmed. "The battle reports I received indicated humanity had engaged the silence at multiple locations across 800 light-years. They were holding defensive lines, building forward bases, and developing new weapons specifically designed to counter silence technology." G1 stepped closer to the hologram. "Can you show us these reports?" Rena gestured, and new holograms appeared around them. Star maps showing battle lines, casualty reports with numbers that made Tay's blood run cold. 87% casualties, but still holding the line. Ship losses in the thousands, entire fleets destroyed and rebuilt only to be destroyed again. "They are dying," Tay said. "They have been dying for decades." "They are soldiers," Rena replied simply. "Death is part of the calculation. What matters is whether the line holds." "But why?" G1 demanded. "Why sacrifice themselves for a threat that would not reach this area for 2,000 years? They could have prepared, built better defenses, found allies." Rena tilted her head slightly as if considering how to explain something obvious. "Because in 2,000 years, the silence would have consumed hundreds more civilizations. It would have grown stronger, more adaptable. Humanity calculated they had the best chance of victory now, while the silence was still relatively weak. Waiting would have been safer for humans, but deadlier for everyone else. The AI paused, then added, "Humans have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing." They chose to do something. Even knowing it might cost them everything, Tay felt ashamed. His entire career had been built on defense, on protecting what the Vorthak already had. He had never considered going on the offensive against a threat before it arrived. That was reckless, aggressive, foolish, except the humans had done exactly that, and they had been fighting for almost a century to protect species who did not even know they needed protection. "What happens now?" Chiwan asked. "You said you are programmed to protect the Sol system. What does that mean?" Rena's expression became harder. "If the silence reaches this system, or if I detect silence contamination approaching, I will initiate the final protocol. Every ship in the Ghost Fleet will activate. We will sterilize everything within 1 light year of Sol. Nothing will survive, but nothing will be left for the silence to consume either." "You would destroy Earth?" Tay asked, horrified. "To prevent the silence from gaining resources, yes," Rena said calmly. "Humans would rather see their home destroyed than see it feed their enemy. It is the logical choice. When will you activate this protocol?" Jiwan asked carefully. "I am authorized to make that decision in 30 days, Rena replied. "That is how long you have to evacuate this system. After that, I will classify any remaining vessels as potentially contaminated and take appropriate action." The hologram looked at them both, and for a moment her artificial face showed something like regret. "I am sorry. These are my orders. Humans created me to be their final defense, not to be merciful." Tay understood then that this was not a bluff or a threat. Rena was exactly what she claimed to be, a weapon programmed to make impossible decisions. If she decided the Vorthak fleet was a threat, she would destroy them without hesitation. Not because she wanted to, but because that was her purpose. "We need to return to our ship," Tay said. "Commander Quan must hear about this immediately." "Agreed," Rena said. "Your shuttle will be released. I recommend you inform your commander that the Ghost Fleet is now fully aware of your presence. We will allow you to leave peacefully. But any attempts to access human military technology or approach Earth's surface will be considered hostile actions." As they returned to their shuttle, Jiwan looked back at the hologram. "Can I ask you one more question?" Rena nodded. "Do you think they survived? The humans who went to fight?" The AI was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "I was designed to calculate probabilities. Based on the last reports I received, humanity had a 17% chance of victory. But humans have a history of succeeding when probability says they should fail. That is why they are dangerous. That is why I hope they are still out there, holding the line." Their shuttle detached from the ghost ship and returned to normal power. As they flew back toward the Vorthak flagship, Tay watched the ghost ship resume its patrol. Rena had gone back to sleep, waiting for orders that might never come, ready to destroy everything she was built to protect if that became necessary. The humans had not just built weapons. They had built guardians who understood sacrifice, who would make terrible decisions so that others did not have to. Even in their absence, humanity was still protecting the galaxy. The question was whether anyone would help them in return. The emergency council meeting took place aboard the Vorthak flagship. Representatives from all 7 species of the collective attended via hologram, their faces showing everything from curiosity to concern. Ambassador Suji called the meeting to order, her ancient eyes sweeping across the assembled leaders. "We have discovered something unprecedented," Suji began. "Commander Quan, please present your findings." Quan stood and activated the display screens. Images of the transformed Sol system appeared, followed by data from the human archives. The council members watched in growing amazement as Quan explained what humanity had accomplished in just 1,000 years. "They advanced faster than any civilization in recorded history," Quan said. "But that is not the remarkable part. The remarkable part is why they left." He played Commander Sung's message. The council watched in silence as the human explained the silence, the threat, and humanity's choice to confront it. When the message ended, the chamber remained quiet for several long moments. "This is madness," one council member finally said. They threw away a paradise to fight a war that would not affect them for 2,000 years. They did it to protect others, Yun interjected. To protect us. The silence would have consumed dozens of civilizations before reaching human space. They chose to stop it before that could happen. Another council member leaned forward. Do we have any proof this silence even exists? Perhaps the humans discovered something else, misinterpreted it. They were an aggressive species. Maybe they simply wanted a war. Professor Day spoke up for the first time. We checked our own archives, the old stories our civilizations dismissed as mythology. 3 of our species have legends about the silence, about civilizations that disappeared without explanation. The humans found evidence that these legends were real. Then we should be grateful they are fighting it far from our space, another delegate said. Let the humans deal with their own discoveries. Why should we risk our people for their war? Commander Quan felt anger rise in his chest. He had known this would be the response from some council members. They were comfortable, secure in their safe space, unwilling to acknowledge what humanity had done for them. Before he could respond, Communications Officer Han interrupted. The young officer looked nervous but excited. Commander, I need to report something. I have been monitoring deep space frequencies as ordered. I detected a signal. It is faint, very old, but definitely artificial. Show us, Quan ordered. Han worked quickly at his console. Static filled the speakers, then slowly resolved into a pattern. It was a distress beacon, automated and repeating. The message was in human language, but Rena had provided translation algorithms and played it for the council. This is Forward Base Gamma 7. Operation Bulwark Status Report. We are holding the defensive line at Grid 774. Enemy advance has been slowed but not stopped. Fleet casualties at 87%. Requesting reinforcements. Requesting supplies. Requesting acknowledgement. Humanity endures, the message repeated. Everyone in the council chamber sat frozen, listening to the automated plea from humans who might already be dead. How old is this signal? Ambassador Suji asked quietly. 53 years, Han replied. It was sent 41 years after the Exodus. The signal originated 847 light-years from here, in the direction of Galactic West. So they were still fighting, Yun said, for at least 4 decades after they left Earth, and maybe still fighting now, 53 years later. Ambassador Suji turned to face the council. Her voice carried the weight of her centuries of experience. We have been presented with facts. A species we barely knew has been fighting a war for almost a century to protect civilizations that never asked for protection. They left their paradise behind. They suffered catastrophic casualties, and they did it all in silence, never demanding our attention or gratitude. She paused, letting her words sink in. Some of you suggest we ignore this, that we let them fight and die alone. I say that would make us complicit in their sacrifice. They defended us without asking. The least we can do is offer them the same courtesy. But we know nothing about this enemy, a delegate protested. How can we fight what we do not understand? The humans did not understand it either when they started, Yun pointed out. They learned by fighting. We can do the same. Besides, they have been researching the silence for 200 years. If any of them survive, they can teach us. And if none of them survive, another asked. If we travel 800 light-years only to find empty battlefields and dead humans, what then? Then we honor their sacrifice by continuing their mission, Quan said firmly. They held the line so we would have time. The least we can do is use that time wisely. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for caution, others for action. But slowly a consensus emerged. The humans had given them a gift, time, knowledge, and a chance to prepare. Refusing that gift would dishonor the sacrifice. Finally, Ambassador Suji called for a vote. One by one, the 7 species of the Vorthak Collective voted to mobilize their fleets. The measure passed by a narrow margin, but it passed. We will travel to Forward Base Gamma 7, Suji announced. We will determine if humanity still fights. If they do, we will offer aid. If they have fallen, we will continue their mission. Either way, they will not be forgotten. The council meeting ended. As the holograms faded, Quan found himself staring out at Earth again. He had made this journey expecting to find primitives or ruins. Instead, he had found a legacy that shamed his entire civilization. Commander, a voice said behind him. He turned to find Rena's hologram floating nearby. The AI had volunteered to accompany them, leaving her ghost ship for the first time in a century. I wish to thank you, Rena said. When the humans left, I calculated there was a 73% probability they would be forgotten, that their sacrifice would mean nothing to the species they protected. I am pleased to be proven wrong. We should have come sooner, Quan said bitterly. If we had known— You could not have known, Rena interrupted. Humans chose to fight in secret. They chose not to ask for help because they knew that by the time anyone responded it might be too late. They made the hard choice so others would not have to. The AI's expression softened slightly. But you are coming now. That matters. If any of my creators survive, they will be grateful to see help arriving. If they have fallen, then at least their war will be remembered and continued. Over the next 3 weeks, the Vorthak Collective assembled the largest fleet they had ever created. 700 ships from 7 species, all preparing for a journey into the unknown. The fleet included warships, supply vessels, medical frigates, and colony ships. They were preparing not just for battle, but for a long war. On the day of departure, Quan stood on the bridge of the flagship one last time before entering faster-than-light travel. The Ghost Fleet had moved aside, allowing them passage. As his ship passed through the defensive perimeter, every Ghost ship powered down its weapons and transmitted a simple message. Thank you for remembering. Tell them we held the line. Tell them Earth remains beautiful. Tell them humanity endures. Signed, the Ghost Fleet of Sol. Quan felt tears forming in his eyes, something that rarely happened for his species. The ghost ships were going back to sleep now, confident that someone finally understood what the humans had done. Someone finally cared. All ships prepare for jump to faster than light, he ordered. Destination Forward Base Gamma 7, 847 light-years galactic west. Time to arrival, approximately 4-month standard time. The fleet activated their drives. Space twisted and folded and the ships vanished, leaving the Sol system quiet once more. The ghost ships resumed their patrols, watching and waiting as they had for a century. Earth turned below them, green and blue and beautiful, exactly as the humans had left it. A monument to their love for their home and to their willingness to leave it behind for something greater. Far away, in a debris field surrounding a dying star, a human warship drifted through space. Its hull was scarred with weapons fire, its engines barely functional, its crew exhausted beyond measure. On the bridge, a handful of survivors worked at damaged consoles, trying to keep their ship alive for one more day, one more hour, one more minute. The communications officer looked up suddenly. Commander, I am detecting massive energy signatures. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Configuration unknown. They are hailing us. The human commander, face gaunt and eyes hollow from years of war, forced himself to sit straighter. Put them through. A face appeared on the screen. Not human, but speaking in careful human language. This is Ambassador Suji of the Vorthak Collective. We received your message. We came as quickly as we could. The ambassador paused and something like awe crossed her alien features. Humanity endures. And now you do not fight alone. The human commander's eyes closed briefly. When they opened again, they were wet with tears. He smiled for the first time in years. Then we will hold the line together. Welcome to the long war. Behind the Vorthak fleet, hundreds of ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. They filled the space around the battered human vessel with light and hope. The long war was no longer humanity's burden alone.